Leslie Visser, Robin Herman, Melissa Ludke, Claire Smith, Christine Brennan, and Lisa Olson pioneered female sports journalism. Many were the first women in the locker rooms of the teams they covered. I had the opportunity to speak to two of these women, Leslie Visser and Robin Herman, who told me their first-hand accounts of what it was like being a woman in a man's world. At the time these women entered the sports journalism world in the late 60s and 70s, sports was where diversity intersected.
I always loved that about sports. It was a great meritocracy and also a great laboratory. You had blacks from the Deep South. You had, white kids from the Midwest. You had people from the Pacific Northwest. You had them from New England. So it forced all these people to be together, which I don't know where you live. I hope it's a mixed community, but you don't find that much in America outside of sports.
Women were still left off of the invite list, though. ESPN's 9 for 9 documentary, Let Them Wear Towels, gave me a lot of insight into struggles that women had back then in gaining access to athletes. The thought has never crossed my mind that I wouldn't be allowed in a sports team's locker room to do my job. It's because these pioneer women stood up for their rights as not only women, but as holders of all-access press credentials.
I had a deadline of 11 p.m. I had to finish my story by that time and file it. So that gave me only, maybe 20, 25 minutes to finish up the story and also to go down to the locker room and get some quotes. So the time crunch was excruciating on me. And if I had to wait till a PR person brought a player out to speak to me, I was going to miss my deadline. So the access for me had more to do with being able to do my job and meet a deadline than getting to speak to players after the game. It was expected that you would have some quotes from the players in your story somewhere. And that's why I needed to get into the locker room.
The overall consensus? Sports was a boys-only club. Yet, while these women paved the way for future female sports journalists, they didn't speak out against criticisms from fans.
I used to get letters, I don't want to read you or any other broad in the Boston sports section. So it was just, the earliest form of Twitter, but people would send letters to the Globe.
You read that piece of hate mail.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be kicked out on your prostitutional ass. Did you respond to that letter?
I don't think there was I'm not sure there was a full address on it. No, there was no address on it, that's right. It was just postmarked. I did not respond to that letter. I kept it though because it was the best and most eloquent letter of opposition, and so I'm glad I kept it. It became funny to me. I mean, at the time I received it, I was rather shocked. No one had ever called me those names, but eventually it did become a piece of history. And
I just skated my wing. If people praised me, if they knocked me, I just tried to skate my wing, and I trusted in that in the end I would last a long time.
Instead, they advocated for themselves in other ways. Leslie took a more lighthearted approach, humor.
And the way I lasted 40 years was my default mechanism was humor. Somebody, an athlete, would hit on me or be rude, and my default was to say, now your mother didn't raise you to talk like that. And you know what? They all become 6 years old.
Melissa Ludke filed a lawsuit against the state of New York to be allowed in Major League locker rooms. She won.
yes, the first time I went into the locker room became a media event. And for the next couple of weeks after that, I was trailed wherever I went by cameras from different local news stations, and other reporters would make a story out of me. But eventually, it wasn't national news anymore. I'd have arguments or pleadings with different teams to to be able to have the same access men did, but it wasn't at that same, oh my God, level. I think I was always speaking about it was the right thing to do. I mean, I was an accredited reporter. I was a member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association, and I was reporting for a major newspaper. I was completely credentialed, and I was competent. There was no reason other than gender to keep me from doing my job. That's how I saw it, and I was always speaking about it. Always had to, because there were always people who would, get in the way.
Today, social media creates an atmosphere that gives the public more access to sports journalists than ever before. More access brings more and meaner criticism. But women on Twitter are also more likely to respond. Julie DeCaro did in a big way. Her PSA, More Than Mean, won a Peabody Award. Julie placed herself in the role of an advocate for women in order to raise awareness that the days of Jack Morris telling sports writer intern Jennifer Frey, quote, "I don't talk to women when I'm naked or unless they're on top of me or I'm on top of them," are far from gone. They've just moved to a different medium.
Not atrocious, not good.
Just sorta there.
I'm actually not a beat writer at all, but okay.
One of the players should beat you to death with their hockey stick, like the whore you are.
Robin thinks it's even worse than receiving hate mail.
Traditional hate mail, that is, a letter, a written letter, is so far removed. I mean, it comes from a place far away from you, and it's not in your face. You can choose to open it or not. You can crumple it up and throw it away. No one else sees it but you, and that makes a big difference. And social media, all the person's followers will see it, and depending on what hashtags the person puts in it, thousands, tens of thousands of people can see it. It's much more of a threat when it's done on social media these days.
Does being an advocate take Julie out of the role of being a journalist? I don't think so. Like the women who had to fight for access to locker rooms, she's fighting for respect and credibility in a different way. She's showing that all women deserve to put their opinions online without having to fear a personal attack from internet trolls. Her PSA reports real tweets about a real issue in society. Being close to the issue makes her the most credible source she could find. Robin, Leslie, and their colleagues' advocacy made this possible.
Washington Post this year has women covering all of the four major sports. That's the primary reporters assigned to them, which is terrific to see. And I'd like to see that happen so often that it's not remarkable anymore.
And maybe one day, because of Julie's advocacy, women will be allowed in boys' Twitter feeds too.